Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Money with Alpha. This week I wanted to talk about something I haven't probably spoken about for a while, although I sort of talk in and around it, and that's the thriving money system, which is the system that I use when I work with clients. It was born out of what I was doing myself. And then I started to try and figure out how to turn it into something a little bit more structured and systemized, because I do like systems that I can use again and again. And it's also where, if anything ever is kind of falling away even in my money life, I kind of go back and I'm like, I look at the system and go, okay, where on here are things not working? And then it's generally just one area that I need to work on. And then once I get that back on track again, then I can let everything flow back and do its thing. So it's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly simple. Not always easy, but simple. And that's one of the reasons why I called my business Money Made Simple was because I like simplicity. I don't like to complicate things. I don't like drama. I don't like repetition either. Like I'm one of these people who if I have to drive the same way every day, I go a little bit nuts. I remember I'm going to digress a little bit here before I get into it, but I remember years ago when I was living with a flatmate who's a good friend of mine, and yeah, we have to sort of drive in the same direction in towards the city, and I was like, oh, I remember getting home one day. I was like, oh, I found this really cool way to get to the city, and we go here and here and here, and I cut like 5 minutes off my journey. And she's chuckling and she's like, how do you find these little, and I call them my wiggly worm ways. I was like, because I get bored going the same way all the time. So sometimes systems, while I love them, they can get a little boring. So often there's a bit of a breakage that happens. So if any of you are familiar with the sacred money archetypes, I know Denise Duffield Thomas does a course on them, and they're awesome. And I've sort of delved into it. My primary one, so my first, my sort of strong one is accumulator. But then comes like Maverick. So when I saw that, I was like, they almost feel like polar opposites. It's like having a magnet that you're trying to blend together, and like this accumulation kind of mentality and approach to things. But at the same time, don't like to do the same thing all the time. So the Maverick likes to, shake things up a bit. So the thriving money system suits that sort of personality, but it also suits a personality if you want to just sort of set and forget as well, and you work on it and you can do things sequentially, or you can shake it up and do it out of sequence too. That actually works fine as well, because everything works together. It's like a puzzle, because I also love jigsaw puzzles and I like it when things come together. They don't always go sequentially. Sometimes I'll do the outer frame of the puzzle first and then start to build in the middle, or if I start to see middles and I'm seeing a trend or a pattern, I'll do the pattern first and then I'll build the other. But in the end, it all comes together. And that's the important part. So there's six steps to the thriving money system. I'll go through them briefly and then I'll go into a bit more depth. But the first one is clarity. The second one is mindset. The third one is education. The fourth one is systemizing or systemization. The fifth one is review. And the sixth one is wealth. And like I said, they can go in sequence. You can jump around. So, for instance, if right now you're like, you know what, I've done enough introspection, I've learned enough, I just want to get straight to wealth, then you can do that. The only caveat to that, though, is that you do need to have done some clarity work. And I would highly recommend some mindset work. So if you've done like a little bit of that first and you want to jump and just get some of the wealth going while you are working on the others, you absolutely can. So these are things that can happen in sequence or in parallel. But as long as all of them get completed to a certain degree, you're going to iterate as life changes as well. So, for instance, if I'm working with somebody in their 20s, and which I don't generally do, to be honest, I mean, the people that tend to, I think, get attracted to what I do are generally more in their late 30s, 40s, and 50s. Where there's a little bit more understanding that you do actually have to kind of do the work and get a little bit clearer before it works. So, so I'll go through each one and then I'll explain a bit more about how you can shake up the order. So, first one's clarity. Oh my goodness, this is one of the most underestimated and impactful areas of life. When you think about, I mean, I spent most of my 20s trying to figure out what my purpose was, which is essentially being clear. You spend your early years trying to figure out how to walk, how to get clear on, how to read, how to ride a bike, how to swim, how to do all sorts of things. And then you get into your teen years and you're trying to figure out who you are and your identity. And then that flows on for the rest of your life because there'll be so many things that impact your identity. There'll be the perceptions that people have of you. There'll be the comparisons that you make when you see other people's lives and the things that they're doing and the stuff you see on social media, which did not exist when I was a kid, which I have to admit was a lot more calm and easy. I think it is harder now when we share more and we have more ways to communicate that are still soundbitey. And it's not always really about connection, which is really ironic. And I'll go off on that's another tangent, which I won't go down that one. But clarity that I'm talking about, so it's not just necessarily it's identity to a certain extent, but I'm talking about identity in relation to money. So, but the clarity is also in what kind of life do you want? And we think in terms of, well, what should I want or what path am I already on? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what do you, at your core, removing any kind of constraints and filters and masks and expectations and comparisons, what is it that you want? That one is hard to do on your own. I've spent, I don't know, thousands of dollars and thousands of hours trying to work on that. And I'm clearer, but it does change though, and that's the thing too. So, I'll grow, and then my lifestyle ideal will grow as well. And I'm not talking about growing in terms of becoming bigger and grander and more expensive. I'm just talking about, I suppose, clearer to a certain extent, but it might grow in terms of scale. Like I might want to do more travel. I might have greater expectations of what I'm able to do because I've already proven to myself what I'm capable of. So as we get older and we do more things, we gain more maturity, we gain more experience, we hopefully are gaining more money as well. It means that you can do more things. You have more choices, which is exactly what money does. It gives you a greater degree of choice about how you do things, when you do things, why you're doing things, all of those, how, what, why, when, who kind of questions. So with those lifestyle then comes goals, and you have to be clear because if you've ever felt unclear, what do you do? Do you just sit and do nothing? Or do you procrastinate and do other things? I always know my house is always super duper clean when I'm procrastinating. I'm looking at my desk at the moment, and my desk is relatively tidy. It's not super duper clean, but because I've been super duper focused on something. But then now I've finished a task that I set myself, which is to completely change over my website to another platform. And I have to admit, after I'd set that, because that's a goal that's been on my list for about close, almost 2 years, finally done it. Feel really good about it. And then I'm just like, right, well, that was a big thing ticked off my list. What do I do now? What do I want to focus on now? And it's not a coincidence that in a mastermind group recently, the business coach leading it held up a book called Power, like I think the one thing, the power, I can't even remember the name of the book. Gary Keller, I think is the author's name. And I was like, right, okay, I'm going to get this out of the library because I just want to see if this is any good. Well, I started reading it, and oh my goodness, it's exactly what I need to read right now. So that again is another layer of clarity for me is to become even more refined in the thing that I'm really focused on. And that's what actually triggered the topic of today's podcast is the thriving money system, because that's the thing that I want to focus on because it is important and it works. It's powerful and I want to share it wider. So expect to see me talking about it a bit more because I probably haven't really spoken about it in this way because I kind of kept it a little bit behind closed doors, and this is how I work with my clients. So I'm opening it up. So clarity in terms of what lifestyle do you want, and then the goals kind of fall from that or come from that. It's like, well, if you want to live by the water, okay, well, how do you actually go about necessarily doing that? And the question also first becomes why? Why do you want to live there? I went on a day trip yesterday up into the mountains and I love the water. I need to live near water. I always find myself feeling very closed, like I feel hemmed in if I don't live near water. And it doesn't necessarily need to be ocean. It's definitely not river. It has to be like big bodies of water. Like my father-in-law lives on the Bodensee or the Lake of Constance in Germany. And that is a huge body of water. I feel okay with that. Like whenever we go there, and one of the first things I do when we get there is, I dump the bags, I do some grocery shopping, and then I shower, change clothes, and then I go straight down to the lake. And it just it makes me feel calm. Yesterday, though, I went into the mountains and I do enjoy the mountains too. So I'm always pulled. I was like, where do I want to live? Do I want to live near ocean or water? Do I want to live near mountains? And I was like, I think I need to live somewhere where I'm living on the water, but I have access to mountains. So even just that kind of clarity, and I'm like, okay, well, what kind of house do I want to live in? And I mean, the house that we're living in now, I really do love it, but I keep dreaming of a different one. I was like, all right, so I've got to try and figure out how to make that one a reality in terms of where I don't really know. So some of the clarity comes a little bit over time, but having sort of some initial steps to become clearer on and having the conversation and to know that you have a choice about all of this too, because it then gives you something to aim towards. Because if we stop striving, we tend to shrivel up. As humans, we either need a very clear purpose or we need some direction that we're heading to. And I think that's what happens a lot when we age and we get older and then we start to shrink, not just physically, but our lifestyle and our goals, our energy, and everything starts to shrink. And to a certain extent, I suppose that's sort of the cycle of life because our lives start to kind of become the support network while the younger generations start to come through, and that is a little bit of the life cycle. But it doesn't mean we need to do it super duper soon or that we need to do it deliberately shrinking. It can just be that our goals and our lifestyle goals start to sort of they taper down a little bit. But we still need to make sure that we're clear and we're aiming for something because if we don't, then where are we going? What are we doing? Anyway, I'm not going to get too philosophical, but clarity is number one, very important. Number two becomes mindset. Now, this is a bit of an umbrella term. It gets used a lot. What I mean by it, understanding what your stories are around money that are impacting the beliefs that you have around money, that are impacting the habits that you have around money, which then go and impact your identity. And these will just consistently loop around and reinforce each other until we pattern interrupt. Pattern interruption can happen either consciously or deliberately or non-deliberately or by choice, not by choice. So a pattern interrupt that we haven't chosen could be an illness, could be a relationship breakdown. Equally, it could also be where there's an inheritance that comes. So it's not always necessarily a negative thing, but it's something that's going to break you out of your current state. I much prefer that you do that intentionally rather than have something inflicted on you. It could be, yeah, it could be even a job loss as well, because I've seen that happen to my husband a number of times and it's impacted me as well. So you start to look back at what sort of stories do you tell yourself around money? How does money feel viscerally in your body? Do you feel fear around it? Where did that come from? A lot of the time, there is generational trauma there. As women in particular, there's gender trauma that sits there. If I was fascinated by ancient Egypt when I was a girl. Every time I could go to like an exhibit at the museum, I still remember we had a really big one at our art gallery and museum in Brisbane where I live. And I was just, I held papyrus. It was obviously modern day papyrus. I don't know, Osiris was like one of my main kind of like icons, I suppose. And it was just, and Ra, and anyway, I could go down another rabbit hole, which I won't. And then I thought, now looking back on that, with the experience that I've had in life and then the things I'm doing now in my life, I was like, that was kind of one of the pinnacle areas where women reigned supreme. The divine feminine was incredible. You had the pharaohs and you had the queens like Cleopatra, and whether some of the stories about her bathing in gold or whatever are true, but the fact is that women were revered because we carried the children, we created life. I mean, yes, we didn't do that on our own, but we still they were honored for their ability to birth, and the womb was honored too. And that was a period in our history that it changed dramatically. And it changed and it flipped around so much to the point where, women weren't even allowed to have their own bank accounts. They weren't allowed to have jobs or work. They weren't allowed to have driver's licenses. If they wanted to do anything, they had to get their husband's or their father's approval. I was like, where did that come from? How on earth did that happen? So no wonder there's still so much stuff around money and women. Like there's an energy there that collectively we need to raise that vibration and, kick that thing out of the park and start to regain that sense of like power and our own power. And this isn't like power for good or bad. This is just, energy. And I think that's where the message starts to kind of get lost. And that's where like that masculine, because money is kind of always associated with its masculine form. I was like, oh my goodness, no, it doesn't need to be. It can be masculine or feminine. It's gender agnostic. It's personality. Like it's literally just a tool and energy it combines. Like it has so much ability and we give it so much meaning and we apply this meaning to our self-worth, which is what really, really, if you're watching me right now, I'm getting very worked up. I'm wearing my money earrings and like bouncing around, I've just noticed, because I'm getting very passionate about it. So that's what I mean by mindset. So what are the beliefs that you have around money? Keeping in mind that it digs deeper than just your parental lineage. Like it's not just about your parents and your grandparents. It goes deeper than that. But we have more of a conscious understanding or knowledge of the stories, but our next 1 to 2 generations. And I mean, I look at that and I think, geez, the wars that they my grandparents and even my mum kind of experienced as well. And we had our pandemic recently. There were pandemics previous to that as well. You had Spanish flu. There was even a pandemic in the late 60s. And there are things that have really impacted our degree of safety or our feeling of safety around money. And the world is shifting right now too. We've got money that's not money being created out of nothing and our governmental structures are being challenged and there's so much turmoil going on. So we have to be conscious that this is going to also impact not just our DNA, but our children's and our grandchildren's as well. So being aware of it and understanding the impact it's having on the decisions we're making and whether those decisions are heading us toward where we want to go or just away from where we don't want to go is important to understand. So for those familiar with NLP, there is a little bit of that in there as well. So that's the mindset is digging into what are those beliefs and what are those stories and then how have they impacted your habits and the behavior that you have around money and that's impacted the reality of what you experience. So and looking on that without judgment because money is what it is, decisions are made, things are done in our lives, and we need to the only way we ever are going to be able to change them and improve them to where we want to be is if we don't stay stuck in judgment. That's self-judgment, judgment of others, anger, all fear, all of that needs to be dealt with. And sometimes you just need to draw a line and move beyond it. Sometimes it's not a matter of trying to understand something, it's accepting it, but then accepting that you have the power to move beyond and to where you want to go. So that's number 2, mindset. And then number 3 is education. There's a lack of it in relation to money. There's a lot more now than there used to be, but we still don't get taught it in schools. The kids still aren't being taught about money in schools. There's a lot more tools and a lot more individuals teaching it, but it's then about what do you need to know. I actually met somebody recently who's going to be a guest on this podcast very soon. I'm very excited about who has broken a lot of the boundaries around share investing and is educating people in a different way. I'm keen to learn as well what she's done because I've tried to learn in the past and I've ended up just going down the path of investing, not trading, which is just like buy and hold. So my strategy is just buy and hold, and you can tell that I get bored. So I get bored with buy and hold. So I'm like, I want to learn something else, but I don't want it to feel like gambling. I want to understand it. I want to actually be empowered around it, and I've obviously must be ready because I suppose I truly believe that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so I'm, going to learn about this. But then there's also other things to learn about. And it's even, I'm going to use the B word, budgeting. It's even in relation to that kind of thing and how we manage our money and the things like I'm constantly trying to get my daughter to sort of think, like, do you really need another squishy? And and then, so if you want money, then you get it as presents for like your birthday. You can earn some pocket money, but you've got to earn it. And then help her understand the concept around investing. So we're literally just going to go down that path now. I've been investing on her behalf for many years. She's 11 now. I started an investment account for her when she was born. and have been regularly contributing to that. She's now at the age where I want her to start understanding how to invest herself. So, so she can learn alongside me with the share stuff and all the other things that I've already been doing. I can teach her because I've already been talking about it with her, but I want her to be able to start to do it herself. And there are tools out there to be able to give children the ability to invest because quite often you can't legally do it until you're 18. So you can have a parent who can support that. But it's important for our kids to learn this so that they don't have to go through all of this and the thriving money system becomes a lot easier for them. They don't have to unlearn a lot of stuff. So education is important. So it's education about money. What does it mean? You know, that whole concept of need versus want, discretionary versus necessities. What is investing? What are the different types of investing? What is trading versus investing? How do you invest in property, commercial property, residential property? You know, what does gearing mean? All these sorts of things. So there is an education piece to understand the vernacular, and a lot of that, it's like learning a foreign language to a certain extent. It's just learning what the terms mean, and then understanding how much of that you need to really know in order to get where you want to go. And then that leads back to what is your mindset and your clarity. So see how these start to kind of build on each other. And you can iterate back and forth. Like if you're getting to the point of the education, it's feeling a bit overwhelming. You're like, okay, I need to go back and look at some of these beliefs and stories I have around money to understand why this is such a hurdle for me because or why you're experiencing that avoidance or that sort of headstrongness of like I don't want to know. Why I don't want to know this is boring. It's actually really exciting and really interesting, but it takes you a little while. Like I didn't always think that about money and investing, but I do now because I can see what it does and I know what it does for my lifestyle and I like it. So and I want to be able to have more women experience that as well, which is why I do what I do. So number four is the education piece, and that one is pretty straightforward. It's not like textbooks, like you're going to sit in a row and you're going to have to do it. Like there's so many different ways to learn about money now. And to be honest, learning through doing, I think, is the best education. So, and there's ways to do that where it's less risky as well. So number four is then systemize. Once you've figured out what you want, why you want it, and you're understanding where your mindset stuff's coming, because it will continue to come up. You just need to have the strategies to manage it. And that's one of the things that I teach you. Then comes the education piece, which once you've got a bit more of a handle on what do the terms mean, what is available, what are the things that you can do, and what are the things that you're interested in doing, you then set it up as a system. So your day-to-day money can become a system and how you manage it. And there's the money pie, that a framework that I use for that. And that's probably like the nucleus of the system. And then you can automate it as much as you like too. So if you want to turn your money pie into particular dollar figures, you can automate stuff going from here to here, from there to there. Make sure that you understand the system and why it's set up that way. Because the amount of times I work with clients and they've got a mortgage that's set up in a certain way, and then they've got an account that goes from this account into this account over to that account, and it's the same money moving like twice. It hits three different accounts. It's like, why doesn't it just come straight from that one? Why does it jump into two other accounts? And then I get this blank look from in return, and like, I don't really know. And I was like, well, maybe it made sense when it was set up, but does it still make sense? And then the answer is usually no. And sometimes with the mortgages, it was possibly because they didn't necessarily have the type of funding that they have now, but they do now. So there's no need for them to keep that level of complexity, which also comes with extra cost. So then they're like, okay, let's find you a really good broker who can help you structure this in a much better way. So the systemizing, then everything starts to fall into place. You then have the goals that you want to achieve, and you set the system up to help you achieve that. And then it all just starts to roll, and you're like, huh, this is actually a lot easier than I thought. Wow, why did I not do this sooner? That I get that so many times. Why did I not do this sooner? Why have I been avoiding this for so long? And it's really, 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 really cool when I start to see that. And it's not even just about the money then. I've had clients where when we started working together, very scared to really make any decisions around money and to do anything. And by the end of our time together, the husband was off, starting a business with the eye on another one. The lady who'd initially kind of contacted me as a client, she was off, growing her consulting, her sort of counseling consultancy, and they were purchasing two properties. And I'm gone from too scared to do anything to that in like 6 months. It was incredible to watch. I love seeing that kind of progression and growth. It's why I can keep doing what I do. So that systemizing is incredibly powerful because then once you get that rolling, you can then focus your energy on something else. You don't have to wake up every day kind of worrying about, oh, am I doing what I should be doing? Or I really should be. The amount of times I hear the word should, I really should be, putting money aside for investments. I really should be, saving for this. I really should not be doing buy now, pay later. I should. And I'm going, all right, let's get to the point where you don't even need to use the word should anymore because you're just going to do the things that you need to do. And if you're not doing the things you need to do, you know what you need to do in order to get them done. Maybe it's just not a priority right now, which is okay. You can park it and come back to it because you have a system and the system just works. So that's where it just becomes easier. And then the fifth step is to review because we don't live in a vacuum. There's so many things. Like just as a classic example, recently, our federal budget in Australia came out, which has kind of blown things up in the property space and investing in general. So you need to go back and do a review and go, okay, because this is exactly what I did. I watched the budget. I'm like, all right, okay, let me go have a look at what I'm doing. Does it change anything? No, actually doesn't. If anything, it's helped me make a decision on something I've been probably procrastinating or pausing a little bit too long on. And I'm like, I still want to do that. And I'm just going to do this way now instead of that way. And it was really interesting because I now look at the pausing, or I could call it procrastinating, as I don't know, somehow my intuition. I know this might sound a little woo-woo. My intuition holding me back in that way because I didn't have all the information yet. And now I've got better information, which is I actually want to do it in this structure rather than doing it a different way. And it actually works better for me now because of the way the budgets come out. So I still have to now just go through the steps to implement that. But then I got more clarity as a result. But the review is important. And you do your reviews. I do them I do like performance reviews I do my own money performance reviews every 3 months. But I do like a proper overarching review every 6 to 12, depending. Had to do one again, like within the 12 months because my husband lost his job and he's now choosing to retire. So I was like, okay, well, now I have to do a bit of a review of my stuff to see how I might need to rejig it because, there's slightly less incoming funds then. Well, so there's less incoming funds. So that's why, okay, that review needed to happen as a result of that. That triggered it. And it might just be, kids are getting into middle primary school and you might want to send them to a private high school, in which case you need to get saving in gear to pay for school fees. So you don't have to go into too much debt for it. So the review is really, really important. And the review could be about how you're using the system, making sure it's working. Review, do you need any further education? Are you interested now? Now that you've got some things humming, you're like, well, now I want to know more about that because I've figured that out and I've got that working. Now I want to know about that, which is where I'm at the moment. And then it could also be the mindset side. You might just go a little bit of a check-in because I know this is something I've had to do a lot recently. It's like, okay, what are my beliefs around something? I responded to this differently than I expected. So let me just go back and check on the mindset. What's happening there? Is it good or am I just in denial? Because I was like, okay, I surprised myself about the response I had to something that happened recently. I'm like, is it really me just evolving and growing, or am I just sort of sitting in this pattern of denial and avoidance? No, it is actually, I've changed and grown. Then you get clarity again over the lifestyle that you want as a result. So you can, again, you can go back and forward. Once you've sort of got everything somewhat set up, you then do a review and you can do that as often as you like. I would not recommend it more than 6 monthly unless something dramatic has happened to trigger it. And then number 6 is wealth. This is where everything that you've done leading up to this, you should just start to see the result of. Then your problem, in inverted commas, becomes what do you do with the money that you're making? Passively, that is. So, what do you do with the wealth? How do you protect it for starters? And some of the structuring will happen as part of the education piece and the systemizing too. But I'm talking more in terms of estate planning as well. So, making sure that you've got your wishes documented correctly, that you've got your superannuation, whether you have a self-managed super fund or you're in a retail fund, that you've got your binding nomination clear in terms of who your beneficiary or beneficiaries are. I had someone recently who their husband hadn't updated the beneficiary in about 11 years, and it was somebody that he didn't want it to go to. There's been a bit of a family sort of falling out in that time, and we're a bit shocked, like, oh my gosh, we need to get this sorted like ASAP because if anything happens, we don't want it to go there. So you're like, wow, okay. And it was ironic actually because my binding nomination sort of time frame had just come up and I had to submit it as well, or resubmit it because you do it every 3 years. Although I'm making some adjustments to whole my whole structure shortly. But yeah, so then the wealth becomes, well, what do I do? And then how do I reinvest things? Do I keep the money? Do I put some things into, and this is again the structuring bit, which it happens sooner. Am I putting stuff into a self-managed super fund? At what age do I want to retire? What's my gap between then and now, and how much I need to retire? So this is where you start to get, it's a different conversation, but you have to lay the groundwork and some of the foundations first before you get there. So that's sort of the crux of the thriving money system. And I'll just go through each of them again. So number one was clarity. Number two is mindset. Number three is education. Number four is systems. Number five is review. And number six is wealth. Now, if you do want to have more of a chat about this, there's degrees of support that I provide. So you can either have like the full program, which is very hands-on, and I help you set it up. We work on it together, and it's a lot more hands-on, a lot more sort of deeper support. Then I have just a single session, which is your financial future review, and that's a one-off session where we just kind of do a bit of an overarching review. We touch in on all these things, but the main focus really is the systems and the wealth side of it. Then, if you want to manage it yourself, I've got the Prosperous app, which helps you sort of set it all up and run it and maintain it, and then you can maintain it yourself, and you can go through these steps yourself, and then you can use the Prosperous app to help you consolidate it and see it all together, and be able to kind of do all of the things in that one tool. So they're sort of like the three main tiers. I do have some online courses as well. As for business owners, I've got sort of money essentials for business owners, which walks you through a lot of this. It's self-paced, and then you get access to the tools and calculators, and then you can do it yourself. So I'll put the links to all of those in the show notes. But if you would like to have a chat, I also have a clarity chat, which is a free 15-minute phone call, and we talk through it if you're interested in any one of these and see which one is actually going to best suit you right now. Or if you have another question entirely and you want to be connected to some other professionals, I have a suite of professionals that I know and trust that I'm happy to refer, and I do a lot of that as well. So whether you're needing a good estate lawyer, or a good mortgage broker, or a business coach, or a bookkeeper, accountant, financial planner, all so many things, so many people. I've been very blessed to find some really good people out there. So if you would like to tap into that, then let me know as well. All right, that was a lot in this episode, the thriving money system. Um, but I will leave you to contemplate on it, and hopefully you can take bits of that are most relevant for you to work on right now. So with that, have a wonderful week, and I will catch you in next week's episode.